Well, hello and welcome everyone. So delighted to welcome you to our session this evening on art making and design for social impact, and welcome to ARTEFFECT. We're going to get the program started, and just to settle in, I have some housekeeping notes. So please get yourself comfortable, gather some art making materials, some paper and pencils. Please post a greeting in the chat and let us know where you're joining from. I want to let everyone know that the session is being recorded, and you'll be receiving a copy of the recording. We're also posting our code of conduct in the chat. So as we're just waiting for a few more people to roll in, go ahead and get yourself settled, and we'll just kind of begin slowly and move into our program for this evening. So I'd like to welcome everyone again and begin with some introductions. I'd like to introduce, first of all, introduce myself. I'm Tony Guglielmo. I'm Director of ARTEFFECT. I've been in this position since January of 2023, and ARTEFFECT is an art education initiative. We are located in Santa Monica, California, with the Lowell Milken Family Foundation. And excited to be sharing about ARTEFFECT with you this evening, and focusing on our special topic of social impact, which is very closely aligned with our mission. So I'd like to begin by introducing my teammates here in Santa Monica, Emmy Mata and Connor Walden.
Hi everyone, I'm Emmy. I am a program coordinator here with ARTEFFECT. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. This is going to be an amazing session. I'm based in LA with my other ARTEFFECT coworkers, and we're so happy to welcome you from all over the country and internationally. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Emmy. And Connor, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for being here. My name is Connor. I'm a program coordinator as well here with ARTEFFECT in Santa Monica. So excited for tonight to hear what Dominic has to share with us, and I'll be behind the scenes working the Zoom, but just so happy to be here with y'all.
Right. Thank you, Emmy and Connor. And also on our team is the founder of ARTEFFECT and the Lowell Milken Center for Unsung Heroes, Mr. Lowell Milken. His vision for strengthening communities through education and innovation has made this program possible. And so thank you, Mr. Milken. And so next, I would like to also introduce our ARTEFFECT ambassadors that are on the call. I see so many names joining from our cohort. So our ambassadors are 34 educators, middle and high school educators nationwide from across 17 states that are participating in an online visual arts fellowship. That is a year-long fellowship, and we're almost coming to the end of that fellowship in June, and they've been working with this content all year long. So welcome to all of our ambassadors. I think we may have some ambassadors from our first year cohort also joining on the call. So a special shout out to our year one ambassadors. This is the second year of the program. So welcome to all our ambassadors and to all of our participants joining from around the globe, it looks like. So that's very exciting. We'd like to get a better sense of who's in our group this evening. So we're going to run a quick poll with 3 questions, and Connor's going to bring that up now. If you would just take a moment to answer these 3 questions. So the first question is about your role. The second question is about who you primarily work with, your main group that you are working with and your grade level. And the third question is, whether you're new to ARTEFFECT or not. So we'll just give this, let's see. We have still people rolling in the waiting room and coming in, so this is great. So poll. I guess we can, oh, there's one there. Go ahead and close that poll. All right, so we only have 90% participation. I know that some of you are still getting settled. But let's take a look at who is joining us this evening in our group. So we have an amazing representation of classroom teachers, and then some nonprofit administrators and teaching artists and others. So majority at 63%, 35 that have answered are classroom teachers. Excellent. And then we have, oh, okay, this is so interesting. We have a pretty nice division of elementary and middle school. Elementary at 34%, middle school at 39%. So kind of even there. And then just a little bit more at 61%, 34 respondents in high school, and then some higher ed, awesome, and some other. So this is great. And oh, this is awesome too. Okay, so are you new to ARTEFFECT? We have 55% new guests joining us. So welcome new educators to ARTEFFECT. And then we have I think our returning ambassadors and some of you that have been participating in our sessions all year. So welcome back, and great. Thank you, Connor, for sharing that. And thank you all for participating. So we're going to get into our very quick overview. We've got a lot to cover, but for those of you that are new, I just want to share a very high level mission for ARTEFFECT. So ARTEFFECT is an art education initiative. We invite educators and students to explore the diverse and inspiring stories of unsung heroes from history as role models through the visual arts. And we're going to be unpacking that as we go through the session. But just so you know, ARTEFFECT offers professional development, mostly online professional development, like we're participating in this evening, as well as the fellowship that I mentioned for the ambassadors. We also run an annual student art competition that we're going to be hearing about, and exhibitions as well. And on the next slide, I want to just very high level again, because we're going to be hearing about this, the Unsung Heroes. So we are with the Lowell Milken Center for Unsung Heroes, and Unsung Heroes, and the way that we are working with these individuals from history is that they are really role models, people that have done amazing, extraordinary actions that have made an impact on the course of history, that have changed the course of history. And in doing so, they've also demonstrated altruistic character traits such as compassion, sacrifice, conviction. So we look at these stories of celebrating the achievements and the contributions of these unsung heroes over the course of history. Right, so in our next slide, we are going to turn now to our topic for the evening. And our session on art making and design for social impact is a topic that many educators that have been participating in these modules over the last 2 years, including our ambassadors, have requested. So we're just really excited to be able to deliver this program at your request. And it's also a topic that's very meaningful because unsung heroes, as I've mentioned, are individuals that have made and demonstrated an impact, positive social impact, that has been in service to others in society, that has made a positive change on the course of history. So we're very much looking at their impact as something that defines these individuals as people to be celebrated. And so we also are encouraging students to celebrate these stories through the visual arts. So celebrating the impact of the unsung heroes. So it's really exciting to be able to examine how art making can celebrate their contributions while also supporting students in understanding how their art can inspire others to positive change. So a lot of full circle loops in this topic. And I'm delighted to introduce our instructor for this session, Dominic Black, who will guide us through some concept to support students in designing for social impact. I want to call out that there's a lesson plan that Dominic has designed that is being posted in the chat. If you haven't already turned on your chat, please turn it on. We're going to be sharing a lot of resources throughout the call. Emmy is going to be monitoring the chat if you have questions. And so Dominic's resources as he goes through his lesson plan are going to be in the chat as well. So keep your eye on the chat, and then we will pause to share more resources and take a look at any questions you have in the chat. So, so now I'd like to introduce our instructor. Dominic is currently BAPA Department Chair and Painting and Drawing Instructor at San Dimas High School in California, where he has taught for over 22 years. Dominic has worked with the ARTEFFECT project in his classrooms and last year sponsored 2 award-winning student projects. It will be great to hear from Dominic firsthand about his experiences working with this content in his classrooms. And he's also an award-winning educator. So we're just so honored to have him here this evening. He recently won in 2024 the prestigious Ruth Jansen Distinguished Art Educator Award from the California Art Education Association. And so that's a very high level as well. I'm going to turn it over to Dominic now so he can share more about his expertise and his background. And Dominic, please welcome and please take it away.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you everybody at ARTEFFECT, and thank you everybody for joining us on this early evening, or for some of you a little bit later in the evening. Really appreciate it. I'm a classroom teacher. I've been here all day, so I know exactly what you're going through, tuning in for more school. You got to get your school on, and I do appreciate it. You're about ready to get into some high-level stuff about ARTEFFECT and Unsung Heroes, but I promise it will be exciting, and hopefully you'll get something out of it that you can take right back to your classroom. As Tony said, I'm teaching at San Dimas High School. I've been here for over 22 years. I've taught primarily art, but also photography, remediation writing, Saturday school, and yearbook. I did that for many years, and that was quite a beast. But it taught me a lot about how to apply, what I was doing organically with paint and whatnot in a graphic format. So it was very beneficial to my education as a teacher. And, going forward, I do have students who routinely want to do projects that are of digital nature, and I have that background now to help them out. In fact, next year in my studio art class, I'm going to be opening up a section within the class specifically for digital art. Thanks to the Prop 28 fund that we got in California, I'm able to order some iPads and issue them to the students for the year. So I'm really looking forward to having that class within a class happening next year. My background in art has always been as a creator. I went to school as an art major, and like maybe many of us, I ended up in teaching. But I have to say, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, honestly. And I definitely wouldn't want to be teaching anything else. I'm sure a lot of you can sympathize with me on that one. Art is a really great place to be, especially at the high school level. We really get into it, like Tony was talking about, high level all day. It's funny because people looking from the outside in might not think that there's a lot of high level going on in a high school art classroom, but there is. And I think even I saw one person in the group who I actually taught. So hello out there, Kennedy. Nice to see you and hear from you. She's also a teacher now too. So awesome, awesome. I'm also the teacher who gets to travel abroad with students. And speaking of abroad, Kennedy went with us to Rome back in 2016, 17. Help me out. Anyway, so I'm very blessed to be able to share art with young people and get into those deep conversations. Yeah, I don't know, 2016 maybe, huh? Yeah, that sounds right. Anyway, so I enjoy teaching high school art, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this kind of innovative way, I hope you feel that way, of approaching the Unsung Heroes project. Just briefly, in general, we think about image when we are creating image. And the goal of this workshop, besides making powerful artwork that has a social impact, is to kind of go from a different way, whole different approach to a visual art piece, starting actually with text. Next slide. Getting involved with the Unsung Heroes project really opened up a lot of things for me. Besides the opportunity to teach this course, which I'm really happy to do, it got me inspired to do something similar with my own students. So last summer, after my students won some prizes through Unsung Heroes, I was really fired up and thinking, how can I do something with a big impact at my own school that is kind of similar. So what I did, I came up with an idea for a show and I titled it Inspired by Black, and that is a play on words. Yes, that's my name, but it also, of course, is referencing Black Americans, both African American and Black, depending on how you identify yourself. And so what I did back then is I started doing the research to create a curriculum set, kind of like the Unsung Heroes biographies that they provide to us, so that my students had kind of a working knowledge of artwork made by African American and Black artists in this country primarily. There might be a few who snuck in who were born elsewhere, but I did try to focus primarily on people who live and work in the United States. In doing the research, I found out, sadly, or maybe not by no surprise, that there wasn't a lot out there. So under the logo there, Arteffact, what you can see is a slide that I created for Simone Yvette Lee, who recently had 2 art shows in Los Angeles. Quite an experience to see both of them. If you live in the LA area, I hope you got to see that. Anyway, she is a living artist, and that slide shows her name, her face, a biographical sketch, and a couple of images of her work. I did that for 148 artists. And then I let this document loose with my students, and it is digital, and I also printed it for those who didn't have technology with them on any particular day. No excuse. And the digital, it's a PDF. If you click on the artist photograph, it would take you to their Instagram if they're a living artist, or to some other interesting article about them. If you clicked on their name, it would take you directly to a Wikipedia article about the artist or some other resource. The students each selected an artist to reflect on and create an original piece in their style or in their subject matter. So it was really about artists speaking to artists. And then finally, as you can see, I titled this slide Capstone Project because it's kind of like what it was, to be honest. Even though the show is up now, we had our opening last week on Thursday. And you can see a couple of photos from the reception there with some of the student artists, and then a graphic that I utilized to advertise the show on social media. And every day I posted a different student work, that is student work, inspired by Ernie Barnes, each time I did that. So this is kind of like, the Unsung Heroes project, sort of in a nutshell. I created all the curriculum for it and everything, had the students respond. They came up with work. We had a community celebration show, and now it's a thing that exists, And so kind of like you can sort of go with that same trajectory, same plan with your Unsung Heroes project. If you're lucky, you have a space to show it off. I'll talk more about that a little later in the presentation. Next slide. So we're talking about social impact, and by the nature of the phrase, it means, making a significant impression, if you will, on humans. So that is where we are. Now, you can definitely make positive or negative impact, and we're all about positive impact as teachers, of course. And so our students are going to be creating artwork. Now, by the nature of the project, kind of like the Inspired by Black show that I did, you're gonna undoubtedly have some social impact. I mean, here we are talking about people who had their own impact on society in one form or another, and we're celebrating them. We're bringing them to the attention of others. So it's automatic that we're going to have some kind of positive social impact. How far-reaching that impact is, well, it's really up to you. It could be just between you and your student, and then maybe you submit it to the contest. It could be the students sharing with the other students, the school community, and then even further out. That's social impact. We're going to be primarily being concerned with designing for social impact, of course, because our goal is to create art pieces with our students that celebrate the unsung heroes. Next slide, please. This quote by Micheline Thomas, she also had a great show at the Broad in Los Angeles also. Excellent, hot fire show. Must check it out. Check out her work online if you are not familiar with it. It's beautiful pieces. And her quote here, art is about seeing yourself in the world and allowing others to see you as well. It's about creating a platform for stories that are often overlooked. All right. And I thought that was perfect for what we're doing, you know, celebrating these stories that are, quote, often overlooked. And if you don't see people like yourself in media, if you don't hear stories that inspire you, well, then you're going to have a very narrow worldview. And we're art teachers. We can't have that. We want people to have a broad worldview. We want people to understand the world we live in. We want them to understand what's come before, what's going to come after, and how they can make an impact on the future of our society, right? I know that's a big job, but I'm not making them do push-ups, making them make art. All right, next slide. When you're thinking about designing for social impact, there's 3 words you want to kind of keep in mind. The work should engage, enlighten, and then empower. Okay. On the left side, you see a pretty well-known image from Keith Haring from the 1980s. And it was about, of course, the AIDS epidemic. At the time, it was kind of not being acknowledged, not kind of, but it wasn't being acknowledged by the government or in popular media at all. And so Keith Haring, who started as a subway graffiti artist, basically in New York, came up with this style of iconography. So these simply drawn characters and some text and bright, bold colors. His work automatically engaged. People walking through the subways would stop and say, what is this? What's it about? It wasn't always about AIDS. It was always about lots of different topics, but always this really kind of bold style. There's text, there's these characters trying, it was maybe sometimes a puzzle to figure out what they were doing, right? But this was a great approach for Keith Haring with regard to this subject. It's a heavy subject. So, you know, how do you talk about the fact that if you don't do anything about it, we are going to die, right? How do you say that without, you know, using offensive imagery or, you know, being violent or too in your face or whatever for a general population? So these characters with kind of their cartoon style really helps any population kind of get engaged, look at it, say, what's going on here? And then because there's text, because there's something to figure out, it enlightens them. Maybe now they realize there's something going on that I need to know about. And then finally, because knowledge is power, it empowers you. So just kind of remember those 3 things when you're thinking about, does this work or is this work going to have a social impact? You know, does it engage? Does it attract our attention? Does it enlighten? Does it teach us anything? And then finally, does this new knowledge give us power to go on and be greater than we already are? Next slide. There's a lot of imagery from the past that definitely had a powerful social impact on people. This is one of those particular images by Howard Miller from around 1942, and it was a poster. And poster art is that kind of stuff that's not really meant to, you know, stick around forever. It's very ephemeral. It's also the kind of work that would attract people's attention, maybe when they're just walking down the street. The color of this, it's bold, it's bright. It's kind of the same coloring you would find on product packaging from the time period. So think about that, right? Responding to a piece of art, but utilizing the style, the subject, the colors of the time period, right? It made it speak to people. And this really did have a powerful effect. Women really did join the effort to create everything from weaponry to shoes for the soldiers because all the men were gone and they were in war. And so here's this powerful image of a woman showing off a nice bicep, and she's saying, we can do it. So simple, but so direct, right? So this particular image, like a lot of images from the past, actually had a substantial social impact. It quote worked, you know, it worked. It did what it was supposed to. And it wasn't about prettiness. It wasn't about beautiful. It was about the focus beyond aesthetics. Check the chat there. It looks like some people can't see what we're talking about. Okay, next slide. So here are like 10 points to kind of think about or that relate to designing for social impact. And there's a bunch there. You can screenshot that. I think you might have access to some of these slides later, but there's a lot there. The next 2 slides are kind of break this down for you as well. Next slide, please. When you're designing for social impact, these bullet points are the same as the previous slide. Just there's 5 on this one and 4 on the next slide. You want to be thinking about many things. So some of the things to especially consider the audience, right? In our case, we are making art that is probably going to speak to other students, right? It's being made in the camaraderie of an art classroom or a classroom, if you're not an art teacher, of course, right? But we are designing for a larger audience, for a global audience, if you will. And this is a contest. So taking into consideration who are going to be the judges is a valid concern for our students. Absolutely. If I knew that the PTA was going to be the judge, that's a different audience than if I know 12th graders are judging it, you know? Big difference, okay? So keeping in mind who you're trying to talk to really does matter. In general, high school students are either talking to other high school students or talking up to people older than them. Your message wants to be clear, and that comes through the design phase, you know, when you're working out, when your students are working out their images in their sketchbook or on scratch paper. And I do recommend sketchbook. If you do not use a sketchbook, use a sketchbook. I go through so much blank paper in the ideation process, you know, but if they have a sketchbook, they got them all together. In the past, they used to have people buy them. I'm now, because of some funding, I'm lucky to provide a sketchbook to each person. And a sketchbook doesn't have to be hardcover or anything. It just has to have blank paper, okay? And I know I'm speaking to the converted already, but remember, a sketchbook will do a lot more for your child than a coloring book, for sure. All right, so what else? Clear message and intent. That's definitely obvious on this image on the left from Bruce Carter from the 1973, same year I was born, there you go. And it's about Wounded Knee, which is a massacre of Cherokee Indians. And this is a very powerful image, but it's also very stark. There's not a lot of color. In fact, there's white and black. Now, that's something to consider because you will go online and you will see lots and lots of projects for this competition, the Unsung Heroes, and you will see almost all of them are full color. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it's not the only answer. And we as art teachers, we want to expand their way of doing things. We want to show them that there can be other ways. And in fact, maybe even better. Maybe full color is too much of a distraction. Perhaps limiting the color palette might make your message stronger. And that's what this session is about today, right? Making your artwork have a social impact. A couple of other things to consider: authenticity. In other words, it either reflects your actual experiences. Maybe a student picks a person's story or an issue that means something to them. Or if not, maybe you're doing something about farm workers, right? Dolores Huerta or something, and you don't know anything about farms. Like I think I've been on a farm maybe twice, and I'm pretty sure both were field trips and they were fake farms. Like, you know, this is like the milk area at Altadena Dairy or whatever. Anyway, so if I was going to do a piece about anything related to farm, I would obviously do some research. If I had the luxury or the advantage of actually talking to some people who were involved in that kind of work, of course, I would want to do that if I could. Students were sort of limited, but you have the internet. You could look up anything all day. A couple of other things to consider: accessibility, and that just means simplicity in design. Also, this is just kind of an extension, thinking about multimedia. Students will design work in a different way if they know it's going to be shared online. Often because a format of Instagram, although I don't know if they're changing it or not lately, I can't tell. But, you know, people got used to shooting or creating images in a square format. You know, that matters. If you're making a very long and tall image, right, but you're thinking, I want to post to this, well, you're going to lose half of it, right? So students will actually think about multimedia aspects. Can I email this? Will it look good as on a flyer or whatever? And that is something to consider. Next slide. All right. Again, with some of those bullet points from the 10 things you kind of want to keep thinking about when you're designing for social impact. High contrast, bold design. Now, again, this isn't always, and it isn't for every unsung hero or every project, but it is something to consider. And if you look at the picture on the left there, it says warming, but it also says warning, right? And most students are easily figure out what this one's about global warming. And the colors that the artist used, Kay Rosen, I mean, she's using red, she's using black and yellow, and the black and yellow, they are alarming, right? Black and yellow in our world is used to say, police line, do not cross, yield, or you're about to get smacked on the on-ramp, you know, railroad crossing, a lot of important things. So this artist, you know, took that into consideration clearly when they designed this work of art. It's supposed to engage you like a traffic sign would, right? And then enlighten you. And I guess unlike a traffic sign, it empowers you. So that's the little extra from your high contrast design. Often a work that has to do with social impact, it's kind of a call to action. It doesn't have to say that either. It doesn't have to say "ulas no" or, you know, do something. It just has to reference that, you know, or get people excited about maybe making a change, right? Now, not necessarily, nor are all of these stories about like making a change today, but learning about these folks, celebrating their stories, and understanding what they did that made such a powerful impact, well, that's going to empower you no matter what, right? Some other things to consider when you are designing for social impact: you want to avoid exploitation. Now, what does that mean? Well, for students, you know, sometimes they just don't have the worldview that we as adults or art teachers do, and they might make something that might be insensitive or and through no fault of their own, honestly, you know, it's just that they're the young. Maybe they're not aware that that wouldn't be a cool way to talk about, I don't know, you know, Nazis or whatever. There's always some reason, and you want to go towards how should I say, work that everyone can appreciate, but at the same time doesn't make anybody a sort of a sad victim. Okay. Other things to consider: the materials, like longevity, relevance, and sustainability. Materials, you know, it really depends. If you're an art teacher, maybe you have access to a whole bunch of stuff. If you're not an art teacher, maybe there's a lot less. But it is something to consider what we are making these pieces about. For example, if I was going to make a piece that was about, you know, I don't know, waste or ruining the environment, I probably wouldn't make it out of, you know, empty, unrecycled plastic containers. You know, and sometimes a student might think, well, how's that a bad idea? That's great. I'm showing how horrible it is. It's like, yeah, but you're also kind of doing a horrible thing. So we can't do the horrible to teach about the horrible. All right. And sometimes kids don't get that. And that's okay. That's why we're here, right? Tell them about it, get them right on track. All right. Next slide. All right. When you start the project, the first thing is pretty much looking through the biographies of the unsung heroes. And there are so many, and they're all great stories. You could do multiple extension assignments just with that document alone. You can do little bits of rough, you know, find 3 people that you are inspired by and give me 3 bullet points for each one. You know, that's if you don't have a lot of like writing assignments in your class or whatever. Or you're a social studies teacher, and this is a great way to get involved with the stories, right? A lot of kids, a lot of students are not interested in reading a whole lot, but you can't help reading these. They've got a photo, they've got the inspirational words and verbiage that they use in the excellently written biographies. And some are short and some are longer. So, you know, the kids can browse through it and they're like, well, that one's too long for me. I will read the next one. 2 paragraphs, I'm good. Let's see what she did. You know, that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Bottom line is they're learning about people that they did not know about. That's the whole point. Okay. So after you've introduced what is social impact and how we can design for social impact, they're going to be looking through the information about all the unsung heroes. Next slide. There's over 135 of them to choose from, and they have the first couple of pages, if you're not familiar with the document, have like a 1-sentence biography about them. That just kind of gets you interested in them. They were interested in photography, or this person worked with marine life or whatever, right? And then they can click on that name and go on directly to the longer biography. And that it's super beneficial. I do recommend, as I said earlier, make sure you have at least 1 copy in print. Because there's those kids, oh, my phone's dead. I can't do the assignment. What? Nope. I got it in print. It's right here. Stop that. All right. Next slide. And you just want to remind people, you know, why are these people in this list, this collection of unsung heroes? Well, they did something extraordinary, right? They didn't just do well on one test. They had a lot going on. Often they had to risk something, their reputation or even their life in order to make these or in order to do these extraordinary actions that almost in every single case, and I think that is one of the criteria for the unsung heroes, to improve the lives of others, right? That's what they did. And of course, that positive impact. Next slide. You just want to reiterate that the unsung heroes are role models, and we can use their lives to make our own better by following in their example or at least celebrating it. Next slide. All right. So here's what I was talking about at the beginning of the session, a wholly different way of getting involved with the project itself. Now, you look at the biographies and there's a photograph of almost everybody in there. And then the next thing, people start making sketches, right? I want them to pause on that. I want them to pause on that. Now, this is up to you if you want to try this, but I recommended it. And if it doesn't, you know, work, whatever, it's still a great side project. Okay, so we're going to be taking our inspiration from the text that describes these people. Okay, in other words, most people are going to immediately come up with visuals for a visual project. They're going to see the person's face. They're going to think about saving people or images of trains and books and all the great stuff that's in the stories, right? But I want to instead start with the core elements of their story. And the way to do that is by looking at the words. This slide here is just a good way of showing how different our feelings about a word or words could be based solely on the way they're designed. It's the same word in every single one. This is a Argentine, I always forget. Polish artist? I'm so sorry. I think he was Polish, we decided. Anyway, Boris Buchan. And he's some of these you might recognize, like Marlboro, BMW, and the others are Polydor. Then there's some that are like based on foreign brands not from this country. But either way, the idea is that you can illustrate this word so many different ways. It's endless, totally infinite, right? But each one has kind of a different feeling, even though the word, the letters are the same. So this is about interpretation. This is about what you as an artist, a maker, a young person, a student, an art teacher, whatever, it's what you associate with a particular word or phrase, right? The idea is that by starting with the text, we're going to take a different entry point into this project that may end up being part of the project, or at the very least, inform it in some way, especially as far as design is concerned. And that's what we're talking about today. Okay, the next slide. Now, we're going to do this activity in a second, all right? But here's what it's all about. The students can select words from the Unsung Heroes biographical outline. Now, we're going to do it a little bit later, but we're going to use a kind of a list just in the interest of time, okay? As you can see, there's 3 examples there, adversity, strong, and then, oh my goodness, I forgot what that beautiful drawing is. It's engaging, but I'm not sure I can read it. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's beautiful. And it is all about word art. And the idea is that you're going to pick a word or a phrase from one of these biographies. You're going to write it in a way that conveys the way you feel about that word, okay? So the colors that you choose, right? The way you position it on the page, the font, the typeface, the style of lettering that you do. If you have access to color, the colors you choose, all of these things, which really seem, you know, sometimes as like, I don't know why I did that. They're very important, all of the decisions, right? Especially with design. You know, I remind my students of this all the time. Packages, clothing, etc. All of these things are choices. It's too expensive to just say, I don't know, let's use that blue. Like, they will do the research and find out which blue is the one that makes people want to eat the new Skittle, or which blue is the one that makes me want to pump this gas and not that one. You know, it's like that. So the students will select a word or phrase, and then they will create a drawing and call it a mini project, only because maybe it takes 2 periods, 2-3 class periods at the most. If you have colored pencils, they're probably ideal for this. You could definitely do it in black and white or with a pen, with a marker, and just to get something down about it, right? But color helps because it can be incorporated into the project. All right, so let's see, next slide. All right, so here are 3 examples from class just a couple weeks ago. We have the word segregation, conscientious, spelled incorrectly. My bad, it's art, I know. It's colored pencil, it doesn't erase, what are you gonna do? And then we have bravery also. Now, in each of these students' mind, these were the colors. This was the way to convey that feeling. Segregation to that student needed 3 different colors in the background and these cursive but strong letters. Conscientious, she couldn't just write it. She had to add this other stuff around it, this glow of understanding and knowledge, right? So what you're going to have access to is a worksheet like this. Now, for today's class, I think you can just use any piece of paper. The worksheet is going to be provided, though, so that when you do this in class, you've got something that they can work on. It's a light gray grid there, and that's really just in case people are really concerned about keeping things straight. But it's so light that it will kind of just disappear into the work. If they want to put this underneath a piece of paper, most photocopy paper is see-through, so they could actually see through that. A lot of sketchbook paper, 80-pound, 90-pound, usually you can see through that stuff too, and you could put this little grid underneath that as well. Okay, so let's see, next slide, please. These are some of the traits and heroic acts of the unsung heroes. And for our purposes, rather than delving into the beautiful resource of all the biographies, which I know if I let you loose on that, you're going to go sit on the couch and enjoy just perusing through all these stories, right? But we don't have time for that. So what we've got are some really big buzzwords for you to utilize in this activity. We're going to give you some time, and Tony will speak to that in a second. And what you're going to do is look one of these words or phrases, write it on a blank piece of paper, write it multiple ways, maybe small. When you find a way to write it that really feels like the word, like generosity, whatever that means to you. This is a very personal assignment, as you can tell, right? The colors that you choose for generosity are probably going to be very different from the ones that someone else chooses. We'll find out in a second because we will have a little bit of sharing when we're done. Anyway, go ahead and grab some paper, some supplies, and Tony, you want to take it from here real quick?
Yes, thank you so much, Dominic. This is so exciting. All right, everyone. So we are going to get ready for the art activity. So first step is go ahead and take a look at these words and choose one, as Dominic said, that resonates with you that you would like to start using for your word art project. And then we are going to give you 5, just because we want to be conscious of time. Let's start with 5 minutes for drawing, and then we're going to do a little bit of sharing out. So so go ahead and choose that, and we're going to put some music on, get your paper ready, and we'll do 5 minutes of drawing and then a couple of minutes of sharing out. So go ahead and going to get some music going for you, and go ahead and start that.
And we'll also have on slideshow some examples.
right, okay, well, Dominic, I'm gonna turn it back to you. But it would be wonderful if everyone would like to share, and let's see, maybe we could just share out. Please go ahead and hold up your drawings or post it in the chat if you want to click and drag. And Dominic, I don't know if you'd like to just see how that was for some of our educators. Wow, okay, Sarah. Awesome. All right,
Ooh.
Sherry, nice.
Wow, very nice, Sarah. Generosity. Sherry's courage. I love the way you separated the C out from that. Again, that's an excellent way to engage, right? We're like, why is it like that? What does this say? Very good, very good. Mm-hmm. Ooh, compassion. Beautiful with the little hands on the ends. Exactly. Wonderful.
Oh,
Mm,
there's one from Ashley, courage in your different ways. That's awesome.
beautiful. Beautiful. And this, this assignment, it could be as big or as little as you want. It could definitely be,
Oh, we've got Monaco. Sorry.
it's okay. It could definitely be a precursor
Valor.
to a bigger project. But it could also be, in and of itself. You could also think of an English teacher using this assignment, maybe to illustrate a character from a book, perhaps using one of the character's traits. Beautiful. Very nice. Matt Young's compassion. Awesome. See, people have access to some digital equipment. Very nice. Courage. Oh, look at that. Wow, Stevie, that's pretty cool. That courage has a lot of movement, right? That makes me think that being courageous has a lot to do also with anxiety. Just for me, the way I'm interpreting it, of course, because of the line work there, it's like it takes a lot to get courageous and have courage. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, it's such a loaded word. Ah, nice. Davicia did courage with a little picture behind it. That's beautiful. Wonderful. Yeah, and it's art, so there's rarely a time when I have to say no unless it's something dangerous or completely off the topic. But if they'll ask, can I add a picture? Can I do it with just one color? The answer is always going to be yes, almost always. Ooh, freedom with some looks like some maybe birds flying away because they're free now. Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah, I've never seen two students have the exact same uh response to this, like ever. I mean, it starts from the beginning when they pick the words themselves. Ooh, Kelly Cody's got a little rage mixed in with courage. I agree. Mm-mm. Very nice, very nice.
We have Greta holding up one. Just back to
Ooh,
that.
valor. Very nice, Greta. Beautiful. That sharp check mark for that first V. That's nice.
Oh, okay. I'm now seeing all of these. Just get a better zoom view. Awesome, Mary and Mindy. Thank you.
Beautiful. Kate, courage. That's nice. Ooh, wow. Vision. Look at that. Beautiful. Mindy and Mary and Brian. Another one did some valor. Ooh, I think, is that a building as for the L in valor? Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Right.
These are all wonderful. I feel like it's at the end of what was that show? Oh my gosh. I was a kid and she'd look through the mirror and there was no mirror there. And she would say, oh, I see Mindy. I see Jen. I see our friends Cindy and Liz and Brian. Oh my God, those are good old days. Was
This
it
is
Romper Room? Yes, that's what it was called. Yes. There you go. Oh my goodness.
so amazing to see what we can do in just 5 minutes, because that was just 5 minutes. So
Ooh.
yeah, that's awesome. You can definitely see how this is such a foundational exercise, especially if you have, building in the elements of design that you've been talking about, Dominic. So with the color and the letterings, these are great. Thank
Oh
you,
wow.
everyone.
Yeah, these are wonderful. Thank you guys. Kennedy, Kelly, Monaco, Athena. Wow. Isabella, all wonderful. If I did not mention your name, I am sorry. But there's a lot of great work out there. Good job. Everybody gets an A. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Moving on. Go on to the next slide, please, Connor. Thank you. All right. So sometimes you may have a group that has some difficulty with this. You know, it's words, and you know, art isn't necessarily about words, although clearly it can be. But that's important. Sometimes they just don't see that connection. They have a little trouble, maybe younger, or maybe even some special students who just haven't figured out, what do you mean by drawing a word in a cool way? Like, what is that even about? It's kind of like when I loved math until they started putting letters in there. And I was like, okay, the letters and the numbers, we've been keeping them separate. And now you're telling me we can just mix it up. It doesn't matter. So that was a little bit crazy. And I still haven't gotten over it. Can you tell? Anyway, so yeah, you might want to try this extension. Wordclouds.com is a way to put some text into like a little box there, and then you can generate an image. You can pick the colors. This one's about Elizabeth Catlett. She was an artist, African-American artist who ended up going to Mexico to do a lot of her work. And then because of the time period, she was seen as like a traitor or something for going to Mexico and hanging out. Wow, you could do so much worse. And they said, I think they revoked her citizenship or something. Yeah, it's horrible. Anyway, she said, fine, I love it down here anyway. And so she created artwork, and you can see there's not symbols, excuse me, there's words and phrases from her life story. I actually copy and pasted a chunk of text from the biography of the Unsung Hero, frankly, and I just dropped it in the box. What's cool is you can take out the words you don't need, like of and, otherwise you're going to have a lot of those in this image. You get to pick the overall shape of the thing too. And I think she was holding something, but you know, it's still a hand there. Anyway, this is a good way to kind of, and it's another extension activity, frankly, that you can do with any group and any time. You know, maybe it's a Friday, maybe they change the schedule on you at the last minute. So you're like, I don't know, we've got 15 minutes now. They messed up the class period. Word clouds. Let's see what happens. Maybe they generate it with the computer, but then they redraw it. That's good practice for doing lettering too, which is not easy. It does take some practice to get letters done right or done well. Anyway, if you want that, that's a good extension or a resource. Next slide. All right. So the idea here is that this mini project, the word art activity, can inform the actual Unsung Heroes project. Again, it's a project unto itself, the word art. You just did it and it looks fantastic. You can see that. You could do that all day. Otherwise, here's where we're headed. You can see the word on the left says justice, right? So the student is responding to that word with these colors and this style of text, right? And then you can see how perhaps some of that exploration of the word justice got involved with the design of the actual mural. It's about George Floyd, who was murdered by the police, right? And you can see the big, strong letters there. They even have a thin outline around them, just like the justice does. The color scheme it's similar, although this is a different example than I had before. So this one's got a little more orange in it than the other one I had, but that's okay. The point is that the word art imagery or activity can inform, and it might be just colors. It might be style. It might be the line quality, right? Somebody used some really frenetic kind of line quality for a particular word. In our group, they did too, but among my students, and she comes up to my desk talking about which unsung hero she wants to create a piece about, and she's got the sketchbook. And she's showing me her word art, and she's showing me this word, and it's frenetic, it's moving, it has action. And she's saying, well, kind of how I drew this word, I want to use this kind of lettering style, or this kind of, excuse me, line quality, this line style in the actual project. And I think I like this color. It really says that feeling, that emotion to me, that trait. And so I'm going to incorporate that in my piece as well. Here's the extra thing that happens. They've been thinking so much about words and text that guess what? After they're done with the project, they have to write an impact statement. So the whole time they've been making this art piece, they've been thinking about words. They can't help it. Justice, where's the justice? Did I put enough justice in my project, right? So then when they go to write the impact statement, hopefully they recognize this whole process, this whole experience, and they get it in there. And the impact statement would actually be coming from a true place of real. You know, they experienced justice or they experienced courage, and then they incorporated something they learned from that into a final project. Okay, so this slide kind of illustrates that. A slide like this is a good one to show the students. Okay, this is where we're headed, right? We're trying to make something that's going to inspire or inform another piece of art, right? So the thumbnail sketch is kind of the word art, right? Now, obviously, you're going to have to do more sketches probably to come up with the actual composition for the Unsung Hero project. But again, starting with the word, it's a whole nother way of thinking about it. And I think that it can make all of the work that's produced in your classroom more powerful, more impactful. Okay. Next slide. So once they figured out the word or words that speak to them, and they've decided whose biography, whose story they want to tell, of course, they come up with their composition sketches. Now, I did have some confusion that I had to address because some people, you know, I don't know, they have headphones on, they've got earbuds that I can't actually see in the other ear sometimes. I get it. I get it. So there is a lot of reteaching. There's a lot of saying it multiple ways. Kind of used to it. It's fine. So we go through it. And when we're doing the composition sketches, that's where they've got the word art and they've got the biographical sketch, maybe on their phone or on the Chromebook, and they're looking for things to incorporate into the image that they're going to produce. You can see the picture in the middle. That's a student who is clearly focused on the portraits or people. He wants to draw a person. So he's probably, Abel is definitely going to end up drawing a person in his project. But I'll tell you what, Abel's word art project is going to, and I'll help Abel to do this, is definitely going to help take his artwork, his project, away from a portrait of someone only to something that has a social impact. And that's what we're looking for. Step 6 is selecting processes and materials. So it depends. Try not to have too many rules, unless, of course, you know, the classroom situation that you're in denotes that you have to have rules, like I don't have paint, so we're not doing a painting, that kind of thing. Now, I have access to lots of stuff. I'm the art teacher. I have 3 levels of art. You can see Jade Xia here on the left-hand side. She's responding to the artwork of Theaster Gates. This is from the Inspired by Black show that we did. Theaster Gates is an installation artist. I really put him in the curriculum deck, honestly, just so that people understood the scope and breadth of art, specifically Black and African American art. I put those things in there just for their knowledge, right? But Jade saw those pieces and she said, I want to do something like that. And she talked about making a construction. And I said, that doesn't sound flat. That sounds like a model. And she says, yes, that's what I want to do. The next day she comes in with a big old bag from Michael's. It's got balsa wood in it. She's got all kinds of tools in there. And then so every day or so I would go in my back office and I would find random little things. Theaster Gates works this way. He uses a lot of found materials in his work. And I would like put them near her workspace and she'd like, oh, a tassel. I could totally use that. Or a little piece of broken mirror fragment, and it ends up in the project. And so try your best to let them really explore, especially when it comes to materials, because it's wide open. And I will say also this year, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, but there is a special designation about works that are done in alternative materials and size.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We have 2 special categories to support students working in large format is one, any work greater than 24 by 36, which could lend itself to a nice social impact poster kind of design, as well as a spotlight prize category for works in 3D. So any kind of 3D ceramics, pottery, textiles, etc. So, and multimedia.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you. All right, next slide, please. All right, so here's an image that I hope everyone is familiar with. I it was very popular during the campaign, of course. It's from 2008. It's by an artist named Shepard Fairey. If you're from the LA area, then for many, many years, you saw drawings of people like Andre the Giant stickered all over the overpasses, underpasses, whatever they are, for many, many years. And then he came out of the street art tradition, started getting contracts and making money doing fashion and whatnot. And then in 2008, this this image, I think he made it as a poster based on a photograph by another artist, of course, and with just a simple word, hope, and a very limited color palette. And it's a powerful color palette too, because yes, it speaks to the red, white, and blue of the country, obviously, but it also speaks to the red and blue of the country that we live in and how there's pretty much two major parties in the country. And somehow they're both together on this gentleman's face, right? And we got 8 years with that gentleman. Thank you. Next slide. All right. So another driver for this project, besides fancy words and phrases from people's biographies, is prizes. And there's nothing wrong with that. It changes how they perceive their work. For some people, it adds a little bit of a new layer of like anxiety, perhaps. You got to alleviate that, you know, and that's easy to address. You're making a project for class. It's also going to be put into a contest. You're still going to get a grade based on the work that you do, irrespective of whether or not you win a prize, okay? The prize is a motivator, though, for some people. You know, a student came up to me Monday, and she brings up her sketch, and I said, wow, this is a pretty powerful image. And I said, and she says, well, yes, I'm really excited about this project. Okay, first of all, when a high school student says anything that sounds like that, you have to like see if there's a camera around or if they're like trying to impress somebody else in the room or whatever. But no, she was just standing at my desk saying that. And I had just talked about the prizes, right? So I figured she's right motivated by these really beautiful prizes. And I said, oh yeah, well the prizes are pretty significant, and they have honorable mentions, they have second, first place, they've got a lot of different awards, spotlight awards. And she says, yeah, I just really want my art to make an impact. And I was like, okay, wow, you should come to the session and just tell them that. So I'm telling you that for T Van Nguyen, who came up and told me that. But yeah, I was like, okay, that's great. Because, you know, whatever motivates the student, right? She literally wanted her work to make an impact, and that is exactly what we're trying to do. Anyway, the prizes are really generous. There's so many, and to be honored, for a student to be honored with a prize for something that they made in their high school experience, in a class sometimes or most times, it's powerful, and it stays with them. Absolutely. Some of these prizes, folks, are more than what we give out at the senior awards banquet. In fact, I had a second place high school winner last year, Sophia, and she earned $2,000 for that piece. She was also recognized at our senior awards assembly with a few scholarships, none of which were as much as the prize she got for her artwork, though. So yes, good job, ARTEFFECT. Thank you. On this slide, you can also see some of last year's standout images in the bottom right there. And then they do a really great job, if you haven't seen it before, of announcing who wins, and they do a live thing, and it's surprise, surprise. And the students are always completely blown away when they find out that they've won, even though we teachers have already know. But sometimes we don't know what they want. So it's kind of nice. Either way, it's a surprise for everyone, but it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's they really respect the artists, and they respect the student artists, and they respect the work. They show it in a really nice light. I know we get information for contests all the time, right? Used to more in the past, but all the time. And you know, the ones that really show a significant attention to students' feelings, like they return the work, or they give significant prizes, or there's like an interview or something, you know, that's always really nice. And those are the contests that I encourage my students to get involved with too, for sure. Next slide. All right, just some information about the art competition itself. Over 3,000 students have participated. And to be honest, since 2016, that's still kind of a low number, right? And I'm just so grateful that we're the only ones that know about it. So keep entering it and maybe tell a friend, but like just one, okay?
Well, we're growing, but yes, it's a small competition overall.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so next slide. All right, again, this is available on their website, and you can see this kind of might be something you want to print up and have in the classroom. They also have beautiful posters that they'll provide if you like that too. Next slide. Here's the rubric. Now, when you use the word rubric, people, I shouldn't say people, students do tend to tune out, but it is important for them to know what the judges are actually looking for. This is key. You can literally go through these points and say, ooh, my work doesn't do this. So maybe I should recalculate or figure something else out. Because again, it's for a contest. Now, we're making art just to make art, to get a grade in a class as well, to learn something. Yes, that's important, but it is an alternative opportunity to be entered into this contest. So they might as well know what the judges are looking for. Next slide. All right. And then the next thing is producing the artwork. Remember, you're limited maybe by what you have in your classroom. Some teachers will make this an outside of class assignment. That means that maybe they can use different materials that they have at home. Either way, both of these pictures, you can see students working out their ideas. The one on the right, she's got some of her original sketches there on her left, and then she's got the larger sheet of paper for the project that she's working on at that time. Next slide. All right. So the word synthesis, and I know all the art teachers know this, but synthesis is just putting it all together, right? And so these are some really nice examples of students who have put it all together. Now, a lot of these examples do feature text, but again, that's not necessarily a requirement. It does happen though, especially if we're thinking about text first. This image, for example, wouldn't make a whole lot of sense without the word "Save the Dunes," right? Next slide. This one is interesting because it's data-driven. I know, data-driven artwork, right? Like data-driven anything at a meeting, I just tune right out. But here it is, we're being inspired, or this student was inspired by the fact that there are 2,500 people who were saved. And so that number, instead of the word courageous or anything like that, the number was significant to this student. So she took the 2,500 and made a leaf for every single person who was saved, for example. Next slide. Okay, and then last, these are three of my students from last year's Unsung Heroes projects. On the left-hand side by Sophia Cabalfin, she did win second place with that one. A beautiful picture, a watercolor, and it does have some text. The text that she reproduced is from the original order for the Japanese evacuation to the internment camps. The one in the middle is about Martin Cooney, and that's by Vanessa Hoyt. And that one has no text and a real economy of color, you'll notice. And that has to do with the fact that this gentleman premiered his incubators at fairs, basically like circus tent colors. And then the one on the right, we talked about her earlier, Elizabeth Catlett. You can see an image where it's got multiple views of her as an artist or a person, but also mixed in with some of her work. And then this student couldn't help putting in some text, but the text they put in was the artist's actual name. Okay, next slide. All right, after that, it's about writing the impact statement, and we do have a lot of resources on the website as well as links that you'll be able to get to on how to do that. There are some excellent prompts that really can help the impact statement literally write itself. Keep that in mind. Although I will say that if you do the word art activity first, you will have a little bit different kind of approach to the impact statement, which hopefully will be a little bit more genuine. Perhaps. Good. And then if you have the opportunity, you present that stuff in a public forum. Here are some images from our opening of our show last week, inspired by Black. And you can see I got all the big wigs from the district office there with me. On the bottom left, we got students, and then of course the show there. In the show, I put the image of I put the students' work. Above it, I put the slide information about the artist whose work they were responding to, and beneath that, a reflection done by the student. So this is kind of a good example, perhaps, of how you could show off the work that your students are about to do. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
2 minutes, 1 minute for questions, but I do know that you have graciously provided your email, so we'll put that in the chat. And if people would like to follow up just for the just be sure that we can stay on time, they can reach out to you directly. And I want to, you know, if anyone has a question, go ahead and post it in the chat. And Emmy, you can let me know if there's anything we want to catch right away. But this is so awesome, Dominic. Thank you so much for giving us a really focused approach to how we could, you know, as Cheryl, who's on the call, said, keep it simple for the students to try to make visual impact. And you really helped us with your high level but very meaningful concept of, you know, engage, enlighten, empower, and then taking us through the 10 elements that social impact should have in those steps of the 10 designing for social impact step, beginning by connecting with a word, which we know has a lot of curriculum connections for our language arts and our history teachers, and really focusing there on a simple word and building outward. So it really provides a nice grounding. And thank you to everyone for participating in that activity. And then to really, you know, be building towards the impact statement. So I want to thank you for this amazing session. And remind everyone that we have the lesson plan posted in the chat. You'll receive a follow-up with all the resources. So just in case, you know, you haven't got that in the chat, we'll be sending you a follow-up. So thank you to Dominic. Thank you to my team. Thank you to Mr. Lowell Milken. Thank you to all of our ambassadors joining. Thank you to everyone that is new on this call and returning educators nationwide and globally. We're going to be sharing out some information about professional development on our newsletter. And so you stay connected, and we will have a lot more to share, and we'll be looking for the competition, which closes April 27th with a winners announced June 2nd. So thank you to everyone, and we're going to unmute so we can say collective good night and goodbye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Thank you so much, all of you.
Awesome job.
Night, everybody.
Good
Great job.
night,
Thank you, Dominic.
Cindy,
Night.
Patricia.
Good night. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Good night.